Hi everyone, I'm Joanna Penn and I'm here with Orna Ross for the Alliance of Independent Authors monthly members only Q&A for August or July or something. Hi Orna.
It's August. Hi, Joe. And hello, everyone.
Well, I think we normally do it at the end of the month, don't we? And this is July's for so
Kind of.
something like that.
We're,
It's
we're
the
thinking of
summer.
it as August. We're going to be like a magazine, where we do the month ahead instead of the month behind.
Well, anyway, we have a ton of questions from everybody today, but we also have a little bit of an update because, as we always like to remind people, we don't just talk about this stuff, we do this stuff. And this is very important to us that we're creatives. Also, keeping accountable is a really good thing. So, Orna, what have you been up to?
She loves to embarrass me. Well, sometimes we go on holiday, so
Oh, holiday, what is that?
the creative pen does not take a holiday, but the rest of us do. So I have to say, I have no report or no update because I have been lying on a beach in Sardinia and generally letting my brain turn to mush and very slowly getting back into things. And I actually love this time of the year because I like to slow down and just do nothing or do as little as possible, do lots of writing and not think so much about publishing and the business end of things and all of that. So that's where I've been. But winding up now, we've got Frankfurt Book Fair coming down the track and various other events and things. So yeah, the holiday's over and I'll have lots to report next month.
But I think it's good. It's actually a really good point, and I do have some things booked for later this year. But one of the great things about being an author and building intellectual property assets is you can go on holiday, and I mean, some authors write one book a year or one book every 10 years, and and we can actually make money from our assets even whilst on holiday. And I think this is one of those things that is really important to remember, is when you write a book, it can earn you money for the times when you're sick or when you're dead. Which is awesome.
Which is absolutely amazing and wonderful. And also equally wonderful and important, I think, is that we do need to creatively recharge every now and again. It is really important actually to step away from the vehicle and give yourself some space. And often that's when best ideas arise. It's absolutely, rest is not sort of a break from the process. It is part of the process. So that's my excuse anyway, Joe.
True. Okay, so I since we last were on the show, I got the Successful Author Mindset book out, and that's been amazing. I've had so much feedback around, because I was quite worried about it because I put loads of my diary entries in, and I really kind of let the world see that I'm, some people think I'm really confident and everything, which I am on one side, but like everybody, I have that self-doubt and fear of failure and all those things. Anyway, people are like, wow, this is exactly what I'm thinking. So what I think is true about all these mindset issues is no matter where you are on the author journey, everyone feels similar. And the only thing that changes over time is that you realize that's part of the journey.
Yeah.
Whereas at the beginning, you think you're alone.
I think your book is amazing, by the way. It's a really generous book at every level and the way you share all of that. I do think as time goes on and the more you kind of put legs under you as a writer, that you do, as you say, you realize this is it. This is what the life is. If I'm properly challenging myself, I am actually going to be feeling all these things, and you stop taking them so seriously and you find ways to kind of get beyond them and get the work done, which is in the end all that matters.
Yeah, and what I'm working on at the moment, which is something I've been putting off for a long time, is trying to work out how to write a novel. Because now I've got 11 fiction books now, 8 novels and some novellas and stuff. So I have written novels, but now I actually want to try and codify try and put everything I know about the craft into something, so a course and a book. And and I know there are millions of books on that under the sun, but there are millions of romances and thrillers and literary fiction, historical, so we can always do our own take on things. So that's what I'm working on, and it's really great because I'm revisiting a whole load of craft stuff that's helping me with my own working on End of Days, which is book 9 in the Arcane series, and then I'm looking at what I'm going to write next. So that's been good. Oh, plus I walked 100 kilometers in a weekend.
Oh, did you really? Throwing it off over her shoulder.
Yeah, so I've been busy anyway. Okay, so we're going to talk a bit about some news, and then we'll get into the questions. So first bit of news then is actually today, as we record this, Draft to Digital have released these universal book links. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, it's an interesting move. Draft Digital have also got a wing now called Books to Read, I think they're calling it, and various other services, ancillary services to their core business, which is distribution of books to various outlets. So they are at core a distributor, but they are a very author-centered company, and they really get indie authors in a way that a lot of people just don't. They were a recipient of the ALLi kind of Service of the Year award last year, and they've gone on to do lots of interesting things since, and here they are again with this. So essentially, it's a really easy to use, very cool tool. It's not just for Draft to Digital authors, it's for any author. It's free to use. So, you know, they have all these things that we like to hear, like universal and free and non-exclusive and all of that. And essentially what you do is if you have a link to your book on any store, you just pop it into this universal link builder, and it will kind of run around the internet and gather up every link that you have and put it in one place. So you've got all your links to all your books in one place. And there are lots of different ways in which you can use the link. We're working on a blog post at the moment, and we will send an email around about it because we do think it's a really nice, useful service. Yeah, have you tried it yet, or are you interested?
I only got my thing today, and I had a quick look at it. And I mean, at the moment, I'm using BookLinker for Amazon, which is a geo-targeting redirect, and Apple links retarget. The only thing I don't know is whether the affiliate links work. So a lot of us use booklinker.net, which has Amazon affiliate links in, so that will be interesting. And of course you can do Kobo affiliate links and iBooks affiliate links, and which are not quite as easy to use, but you can still use them. And if people don't know what that means, it means you earn a very, very tiny amount, about like 2 cents on extra on everything that gets sold when people use that link. And you basically hope that they click on the link, look at your book, hopefully buy your book, but also buy a tractor. And which is the most outrageous affiliate story I ever heard. And then you get a percentage of what other people buy. And actually it's a really funny thing to do. Look through your affiliate report and see what people buy along with your books. I don't want to know what the romance writers are getting up to. Anyway, the next thing that is exciting news is Scrivener has finally, and people have been asking for this for years, and the guys are just great. They work really hard. The Scrivener is now available for iPad and iPhone, so iOS. And yeah, so awesome. I bought it. Yeah, exactly. I bought it immediately. It's $20. And to be fair, I probably won't use it on my phone, but I bought it anyway because Scrivener's so cheap, it's ridiculous. So I think, you know, if you do want to write on the go, or you want to plot on the go or whatever, super duper.
It's fantastic. They are just the best. We have a question actually about Scrivener coming right up, but we both have been fans from very early on, and I still think they're way out ahead. And you know, they could so easily be charging
a couple of $100
or a monthly subscription,
or
whatever. We'd all happily pay it, and you just pay, you know, you buy it once, there you are, your books are formatted for you for life. You know, it's really quite incredible. So fantastic. Well done, guys. We love you.
Yeah. It is the number one tool as far as I'm concerned. Also, then 2 little things about the massive rise. Oh no, couple of let's do the author earnings report first. So Data Guy spoke at RWA, the Romance Writers of America conference, and shared some amazing figures. So we'll link to this in the show notes, I guess, on the blog, but you can also find it at authorearnings.com. And it basically says 89% of all romance sales are digital. And this is the Amazon US store. Over 50% of those are indie. And over 67% of all US romance sales are not tracked by any traditional industry metric. So if you think about that, that is an incredible volume of ebooks and dollars that are not being reported in any industry metrics. So what that means is when you see the news reports, the publishing industry news reports that ebook sales are dropping, it's partly because I'm sure everyone's seen recently, I have, you know, the traditionally published authors with ebooks that come out at $12.99, $13.99. It's like, blooming hell, so I can buy one of those a month, you know. And they're not reporting 67% of romance ebooks, which is the biggest chunk of ebooks sold anyway. So this is an incredible figure, and yeah, really interesting report. You hadn't heard that, had you, Orna?
Well, I've been on holiday, so I haven't had time to look at. I have stacks of kind of you know, I get all my newsy things into one place.
Yeah, one
so I'm really looking forward to having a good old catch up with them all. But it is an amazing statistic, and it really essentially means, you know, the indie sector, I reckon, is outselling all the big five.
Definitely in romance, for sure.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
What's also interesting is he does a breakdown of subgenre, which is really interesting. So because, of course, everybody knows that romance is the biggest genre, but if you actually drill down into the subgenres, there's a real difference between things. You know, so you can look at the difference between paranormal angel romance and Scottish medieval historical romance. So really interesting data, and I found this fascinating too. There's also stuff about KDP Select, you know, pricing. So really, I would recommend everyone go and look at this, even if you don't write romance, because this type of data, even though it might not be directly applicable, is, you know, if you think, I always think that romance is between 2 and 5 years ahead of everyone else, both in marketing, in the writing trends, in digital, always has been. I mean, like, and I know romance isn't erotica, but some of it is. And if you look at what's happening in virtual reality, alternate reality right now, the sex industry is leading the way, which they did with ebooks. You know, that moved into erotica, then it moved into mainstream. So this is, whatever people think about that, it doesn't, you know, this is what is leading the charge. So I look at this data and go, oh my goodness, at the moment, you know, if you look at action, adventure or conspiracy thriller, it's dominated by white, middle-aged American men. And I'm like, I know I'm middle-aged, but I'm white, but
but you're not a man.
But I'm not a man, and I'm younger than like Clive Cussler. So I look ahead and go, okay, look, if your genre, you know, like mine, is not at the moment dominated by indies, it won't be long. It will be a year or two, maybe a couple more years, but that's the way I think things are going, certainly in the digital space. That's my feeling anyway.
I think so. And I think even looking at, there's always so much in one of the data guys' reports. I mean, they do such a service. It's incredible. Without them, we would know nothing. They're fantastic. But I think even looking at the genre, the subgenre, and the way it breaks down, you can get so many ideas about things you could be doing or ways you could be doing things. And I really feel that we're on the edge of a new kind of opening again, where we're beginning to realize now for the first time the whole indie sector is maturing and getting a sense of its own power in a whole sort of different way. So when it started, it was just about, oh, I can publish myself, this is just so amazing. Now it's, you know, what else can I do? How can I change this? What direction would we like to take things in? You know, so it's a really exciting time. And yeah, looking ahead is, of course, what we all should be doing. And just because something isn't working right in this moment, you know, there are strategic sort of trends that you can easily see are going to happen. And you just need to kind of take your time and be there when they do happen.
Yeah, definitely. And be in the right position to take advantage of it. And just a couple more things before we move into the questions. There are also, because of this massive rise of indies, there are still companies who are jumping in and going, oh, actually, maybe we should get a piece of this pie. And Barnes and Noble, who lost me when they closed all of their international stores, really upset me big time. And not just that, they gave their ebook customers in Britain to Sainsbury's, which I thought was just the most ridiculous thing ever. It is a supermarket if you're not British. That to me was disrespectful to readers, and that does not show good judgment. Anyway, that's my own personal opinion. But anyway, Barnes and Noble have started the print on demand service. Now, of course, they should have done this 5 years ago. But here we are. So you can go to print.nookpress.com and you can now do print on demand through Barnes and Noble, and it will appear on the Barnes and Noble store. Of course, if you use CreateSpace or Ingram Spark and you do the expanded distribution, it will also appear on Barnes and Noble .com as a print book, unless they for some reason stop doing that. But what they've also done is they, and I'm quoting from their website, if you've sold over 1,000 units of your Nook Press ebook in the past 12 months, your book may be eligible for sale in a Barnes and Noble store on a local, regional or national level. Now, I would say 1,000 units of a Nook Press book is not that big a deal in some genres in a year. So obviously that won't be everybody, but it's a very interesting development, and they're using that as a way to try and attract people. I actually think that the authors who would get through that type of gateway, gatekeeper, are going to be those authors who are already established anyway. I don't think if you sell 1,000 copies, you'll just be instantly on a Barnes and Noble end shelf. And it might cost you. We don't know the details of that. But and then also Nielsen have come out with ISBNs at a smaller scale, targeting authors. So what do you think of these developments?
Well, I think with I think all over the place, people are realizing what's happening, and people who are, long established in the trade are thinking that there's this huge band of authors over here. We've got to, do something for them. And very often they don't really know what to do, and they're really only interested in kind of cashing in, and they very quickly make that obvious because they don't do their research. I think with Barnes and Noble, it's very much the carrot, this might happen and that might happen. And, it's appealing to those authors who, like the idea of that it might happen. I think most savvy indies will be kind of standing back to see how it unfolds and what gives, essentially. You don't feel that Barnes and Noble are in touch with the author community in that way. And I agree with you, what happened at the international level, they've always been far more successful in the US anyway, but still it just was a complete pullout. And Nook Press itself was very difficult to manage, and upload direct and all of that. So very much wait and see on that one. Nielsen needed to bring its pricing down. I know Nielsen is very aware of the author market and wants to, dialogue more and find out more about needs. It's very interested too in tracking more what's going on in this space, but doesn't really know how to do that outside of the ISBN thing. And there's no way you're going to persuade every indie that they should have an ISBN. It's, some people are convinced of the need for it and some people are not. And that's what being indie is all about. You get to choose yourself. So, it's kind of stand and see. I think the big players for the last few years are still the big players, and nothing is shaking that as far as I can see right now.
Yeah. And of course, as ever, it's the biggest thing we disagree on.
ISBNs. Well, we have to disagree on something.
I choose not to use them, and obviously it doesn't affect my business. So this is the thing. Okay,
it depends on your business model.
Yes, absolutely.
To some degree, it depends on your business model, but there are other people who want to own the ISBN because it makes them the publisher of record, and who knows how things will play out in years to come.
Yeah. But let's face it, if 67% of the romance ebook market in the US is not measured because presumably they don't have ISBNs, then the whole tracking thing is a bit random now. But anyway, Right, let's get on to the questions. This one's for you. Natalie says, I've often seen and heard the words literary fiction. What exactly makes a piece of fiction into literary? Who determines whether it's literary fiction, and how do you go about writing it?
Ooh, there are lots of big questions there, Natalie, and people have had arguments and not, ended up not speaking to each other over this one. So it's a bit like Brexit or whatever, but I shall step just delicately in there to say, in my opinion, literary fiction is defined by an attention to language and sentence structure in a way that distinguishes it from other forms of writing, and there is no clear boundary. And nobody can actually say that's a piece of literary fiction and that is not. It is, like most things in writing, a subjective thing. There is a category, a genre of fiction called literary fiction. And it's my contention that it has had disproportionate, I write in this genre myself, but I think it has had a disproportionate amount of attention from the trade publishing industry in the past, because it is the genre that most of the people who work in publishing like to read, and therefore it's had far more support than the books that actually keep most bookstores running and keep most publishers with their doors open. How do you write it is something that's way beyond our ability here to talk about it. But like anything, buy a book, have a read, see what you think. I would not suggest that anybody should even consider writing, deciding to write literary fiction unless they have an overwhelming passion for that genre themselves and read widely in that genre themselves, for two reasons. First of all, it is an extremely challenging genre to write in, because it does ask for a very close attention to language and a sort of a level of language skill that takes years to amass. But secondly, it doesn't have many readers, and so it would make more sense if you don't read widely in that genre yourself. If you don't absolutely love it and crave to write within it, it would make far more sense to write in another genre, another category. So that's about all I think we can say about that in the amount of time that we have.
I think the same applies with any genre. You have to respect the readers of the genre and write what you love to read. So, if I was I don't write paranormal vampire romance. I don't read paranormal vampire romance. And I think it's very hard to write a lot of good romance books, because, the readers are so hardcore about what they like. So respect your genre, read in it, and make sure you're delivering to that genre. The same with literary, the same with paranormal romance. Readers Absolutely. Are going to, and if you say you write a literary book and you put it in paranormal vampire romance subcategory, you will get 1-star reviews, because you're trying to sell it to the wrong reader. So this is the thing. And we definitely both agree, don't we, on the definition of good. What the industry has said is good it's in the eye of the reader. So
Absolutely. The reader is, and that's what's so exciting about indie, because loads of people will read a fantastic prize-winning literary novel and go, that's rubbish, I hate it. Just as the literary reader will, be all sniffy about 50 Shades, and there are, gazillions of readers for that, not just for its literary value, in fairness, but still,
story value.
Yes, exactly. So,
I must say, I just read William Styron's Sophie's Choice, which I read before a long time ago, and that is literary prize-winning, blah blah blah. And I thought it was terrible. Yeah. I mean, it has some amazing themes and everything, but it was tough to get through. Anyway,
story for most readers trumps every time. So a well-written book that doesn't have a great story is never going to actually grab people, and a really good story will be forgiven for all sorts of, even misuse of language, never mind not very sophisticated language. So I think it's story that the human being craves, and there are a small number of people that love when things get very kind of fiddly around language, but most people don't.
Yeah. Okay. Cornelia, what is your experience with using Scrivener for both ebooks and print book preparation and acceptance by publishers?
I presume you mean, Cornelia, acceptance by distributors and online stores, because as indies, we are the publisher. And then one of the phases of publishing that we put our books through is production, which means putting it up on Amazon or Kobo or a distributor. I think we said already, both of us are huge fans of Scrivener. I use Scrivener to prepare most of my ebooks, and I use a designer for print, but for ebooks, it's just fantastic. If your book is a straightforward narrative, it gets a little bit more complicated when it gets into, text with pictures and stuff like that. But it really is fantastic and getting better all the time.
Yeah, I also use one of our fantastic designers, Jane Dixon-Smith, for interior design as well as cover design. And I do my ebooks on Scrivener as well. You can do your own output in PDF format for CreateSpace. And I do know people who do that, but I think you have to really care about all that formatting stuff. And I don't. So yes, you can do it, but you have to spend a bit of time playing with it. It can definitely be done though. Okay, but I don't think we don't have a recommendation, basically. Just do it so that it looks professional. And there are lots of do's and don'ts on print formatting, like having your page number on the right hand side, which is something I got wrong with my very first self-published book. And it's like, duh, amateur, you're an amateur. Anyway, Maria says, asking about pre-orders. Joanna suggests in her book doing a soft launch a week or two before the real launch, so people on mailing lists can buy the book, leave reviews. With a pre-order, the date of the launch is set. How can I do a soft launch? Okay, so yeah, when I first wrote How to Market a Book, we didn't have pre-orders, and I'm actually the next things on my list is to update How to Market a Book again, which will be the 3rd edition, because things do change. This is one of the pains of writing nonfiction. But basically, you're right. With a pre-order, you actually have to go live at the time that it says it goes live, and the files get delivered on that day. However, with a soft launch now, what's happening is people are giving their advanced readers the copies and then basically saying, okay, please read it, Anna, on this day and at this time, or on this day, please put your reviews up on day 1. So it's essentially a similar thing in that your pre-orders mainly for people who already know of your books and your fans, and then they get the file delivered straight away, and then hopefully people will leave reviews. And then in the same way, you would only start promoting your book probably a week later or even 2 weeks later once you've got some early reviews on the book. So I think that makes sense. And I think, to be fair, pre-orders, you would only be using them if you have an established series or an established author name, because I don't, or just to get organized, but you might be disappointed if you use them thinking that you're going to get massive sales on pre-order. I certainly haven't had massive pre-order sales, and I've got a bit of an audience. So do you have anything on that, Orna?
No, I think you covered it perfectly.
Okay. Oh, so related. Can you upload your book to Amazon Kindle and make it available to pre-order? Yes, you can. Amazon, the other stores like Kobo and iBooks, you can do it up to a year in advance and you don't need a cover. Amazon, I think it's 90 days, but you have to deliver the book 10 days before. So they're very hardcore about it. So just make sure you have enough time. I already have pre-orders up for end of days for December on iBooks and Kobo, but I won't put my Amazon up until 2 weeks before when I'm actually ready, because I just don't think there's any point doing it too much, because the sales get spread out basically.
iBooks likes pre-orders and likes you to do it, and Amazon, if you don't deliver on time, you're off pre-order for a year. You can't use the facility again for a year. So
be careful, get your timing right. Okay, Abby says, what is the best way to make a review ebook copy of your book from a Word document?
A review copy to
an ebook copy. Just from Scrivener, right? Output You can output a Kindle file or an EPUB from Scrivener, and then you just email it to the person. You can also use bookfunnel.com if you want to deliver like stamped ARCs with, because a lot of the romance writers have been very concerned with piracy of ARCs, where they've ended up, the advanced reader copy has ended up on torrent sites before the launch. So with Drafter Digital, you can actually individually watermark ARCs, and then if it gets leaked, you know who did it.
Yeah, with BookFunnel, I think you meant to say there.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
What did I say?
Drafted Digital. Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah, sorry. Bookfunnel.com. Okay. Emmett says, one of the recommendations in ALLi's material is to publish using CreateSpace for Amazon and Ingram Spark for everything else. Can you clarify the advantages of this strategy? And a similar question for ebook distribution.
The advantages of the strategy are simple, really. CreateSpace uses Ingram for its advanced distribution. So Ingram is actually the company that they have to go through. That's one reason to do it. You need obviously to use CreateSpace because that is the Amazon environment. They have the most direct relationship there, and you maximize your return, your financial return on it. A second reason is if you have any interest in your book being taken up through Ingram by bookstores or any other kind of retail outlet, a number of these bookstores do not like to see CreateSpace ISBN or a CreateSpace published book. They prefer to deal directly with Ingram. So for those two reasons, it actually makes total sense to do it. How you do it is very simple. On your Amazon, when you're putting your book up on CreateSpace and it asks for expanded distribution, you choose not to take that option. And when you are uploading your book in Ingram Spark, you choose not to have them distribute to Amazon. So it's just a way of making sure that your book has the best chance in the print market. In the ebook market, we recommend, if you can, and we realize that indies are often very pressed for time and may not be able to do this, but if you can, again, to maximize your book's chances on the market and its return in terms of financial return, that you go directly to Amazon KDP and to Kobo and to
iBooks.
iBooks, Apple iBooks, yes, not forgetting the wonderful Apple, who are really stepping up hugely in the indie space. And then use a distributor to reach as many of the others as you can, and perhaps use more than one distributor. Draft Digital has good reach, Smashwords reaches some stores that Draft Digital doesn't reach, and vice versa. And Publish Drive is a new distributor based in Hungary, which is reaching 200 stores now worldwide and rapidly growing. They're basically aiming to be everywhere. So do as much as you can, go directly as much as you can, and use a distributor for the rest.
But basically, both CreateSpace and Ingram Spark, I think, offer ebook. You can do your ebook through CreateSpace and Ingram Spark, and basically we're saying don't do that.
Yeah, CreateSpace doesn't offer ebook. Ingram Spark offers an ebook distribution. And again, if you're outside of the UK and US, you might consider Ingram Spark as your distributor. We have a number of members who use them for ebooks as well. The reason, and the only reason that we don't recommend Ingram Spark for ebooks as much as we do for print is just that they charge more. Their costs are higher than those distributors. So they're adding on a premium. And that's why you don't use, that's why you try to divide out and go directly, because as well as the 30% that Amazon is taking, then the distributor is taking their 30%. And, books don't cost very much. It's not very long before you're down to a really pitiful kind of commission for you. So it's about doing your sums really and just maxing out your returns.
And it's about control and speed and all of that. Like you can upload new covers, you can change your pricing, blah, blah, blah. And if you have the direct link as opposed to going through a third party, you know when it will happen and all that. So those are all good reasons.
All good reasons, especially around pricing and Kobo and some of there are certain promotions that you're just not eligible for unless you are a direct. direct. If you go through distributor to Kobo, you're not eligible for those promotions. So there are lots of reasons as to why we kind of make those recommendations, but the recommendation changes. So, do keep an eye. It's not always the same. A while ago, we were recommending people to go directly to Nook, and
and I've ditched Nook Press, and I'm going through Draft to Digital to Nook just because it just made me mad, and I don't like to get mad while I'm doing my publishing. And then we have a follow-up question, which is from me, which says, Mark says, I keep hearing I should be using Ingram Spark for print on demand, but I believe Joanna is with CreateSpace only. Is Ingram worth the expense? So my angle on this is that 5% of my sales are print. I personally, although I have books behind me, I do have some books. I am a digital reader. I have a global focus, a global digital focus. So I prefer to spend my time on writing more books, doing marketing and digital sales. I use CreateSpace and free ISBNs. I'm not focused on trying to get my books into bookstores. Yes, it would be great if they were, but personally, I believe, my evidence of my own business is that I can be much more effective doing a promotion on like a BookBub for an ebook. I can make much more money than if I spend time trying to create relationships with booksellers so they stock a print book of mine in a bookstore locally. So this is just a focus. So my business choice is that. So I just go with CreateSpace, and other people like Orna go through Ingram and CreateSpace. So it's just a choice, and use ISBN. So it's just a business choice as to what you want to spend your time doing. There's plenty of indies who have built up really good relationships with bookstores, and they stock their indie books and all of that. It's just not what I focus on.
I think it's fair to say that print doesn't work well for indies yet. Nobody has cracked this. Ingram is working hard on trying to crack it, but they haven't. They'd be the first to admit that they haven't cracked it yet. And if you're talking about, working as a working indie author, making a living, and never mind making a killing, but just, getting a business up and running, really a focus on print is a big distraction. You are not going to get the sort of return you need to make a living on print straight out of the bat. So we really do recommend everybody to start with ebooks. And that's counterintuitive to a lot of people, who start self-publishing. They start off thinking about print and they only get around to ebooks after that. Certainly start with digital. Do not start with a consignment print run that you put into your garage. At a minimum, start with POD. But actually, if you're sitting at home now thinking about what you're going to do, forget about print for a year at least, I would say, maybe 2. Build a readership on ebooks. I know that a lot of us have a love affair with print, and that's absolutely fine. But if you're doing self-publishing for your own personal reward, just a creative imperative, that's absolutely fine. In those cases, do obviously what you love to do. But if you're actually looking to do this in a serious way, then please begin with ebooks and go from there. And then whether you decide to use Ingram and CreateSpace or CreateSpace alone will be decided. Most successful indies, I would say, unless they have managed to get a widespread distribution, and really it's a handful of people who've managed to do that, they're only using print for giveaway copies, review copies, to show people what they can do, and or they have an outlet for print in that they are speakers with a back of the room sales, or they have special sale outlet of some kind. So yeah, think digital for sure, and think ebook first.
Now we have a ton of questions. We're already running long. So I'm going to pick some. So basically what we're going to do is carry some of these over for next time. So we've talked a bit there about print and ebooks. I'm going to take some from some other categories of questions because we're getting, obsessed with print and ebooks. So I'm going to pick one on the mindset here. So Kayla says, when you get burned, really burned, like many of us do, how do you find the motivation to keep going? When you're asking the question, is it really worth it? is it really worth the time away from my kids, my family, and all that? How do you motivate yourself to keep writing? Good question, Kayla, and that's why we're going to tackle it. Orna.
Well, you've just written a book about
Oh, well,
mindset. So I think if you would just be
oh, well,
quicker.
I'll start then, but then you can carry on. So I think it comes down to two things. One is what's driving you to write in the first place, because often, I talk about money and success and goals all the time, but that's not why I'm a writer, because you would be mad to do this for those reasons. I think there's something that drives us. So behind me as well, if a lot of my journals, I've been writing journals for so long. A lot, those of us who do this, I think, can't help but do it. So the question then becomes, as you've said, so how do you motivate yourself to keep writing? I think that will come from inside anyway. The question then is, how do you motivate yourself to keep writing the book, or keep going as an indie, or keep trying to aim for publishing success, which is a completely different question to just writing, say, free writing as Orna does, or journaling like I do, or whatever. So in terms of then, how do you keep going? Is it worth it? Then you have to consider, what is your definition of success? And that may be different things for different people. So, it might be, I want to publish this, my life changed. I need to get this story out in the world. I want to hold it in my hand, and that's it. Compared to, someone like me who's very ambitious, wants to be kind of Stephen King in 25 years. So I'm very driven for that kind of, to get my books out really, really wide, and get a movie deal. And what drives me is this is wanting to create more in the world, always like that. But for many people, it's very, very different. So I think those are the two things that you have to decide. What is keeping you writing, just writing, and that might be keeping you sane. The time away from your kids and your family, the time that you spend for yourself writing, might be the things that help you deal with your kids and your family. And then the other side, of course, it might not be worth it. It might not be worth it for you to deal with print publishing on Ingram, or try to figure out Scrivener, in which case don't worry about it. that would be my take, basically.
I'm interested in the way you lead in, Kayla, with when you've been burned, and I mean really burned, and obviously something has happened that's really hurt you and made you reconsider. And there are two ways to think about that too. And Joe was right. On the one hand, maybe it isn't worth it, and you really do have to kind of look at that, because this is a crazy and very demanding life. And so, there is that. The other thing is that everybody gets burned at this, and everybody feels hurt at some point, and maybe lots of times on this way. Particular, it may be rejection by a publisher if you're trying to get a trade publisher. It may be awful reviews. It may be somebody else saying something to you. The point I'm trying to kind of get to is that extrinsic motivation definitely won't keep you going. So if you are, responding to being hurt by not wanting to do it anymore, or only going forward when the feedback is positive, then it's not enough to maintain you. In a sense, you have to kind of put all of that aside and know that you want to keep going with it, and that it's giving you something. So sometimes when we've been hurt, we forget all the things that we're getting from the writing or the publishing, and they are two different things. So there's a lot to work out, but the thing that differentiates those who kind of get there, in inverted commas, because you're never there, you're always throwing the ball out and running after the next thing, but is that you get burnt, and so you kind of rub it down and you get on and go again. And Joe's absolutely right. Hugh Leonard is an Irish writer who said, this is a sickness, we are to be pitied. And in a way, that's right. In a way, after you've recovered and given yourself a little bit of recovery time, getting back on there will either be inevitable or not worth the effort. And either outcome is fine. A want dropped is as good as a want fulfilled. you move on to something else. Some other new desire will emerge. And so let us know how you go.
Yeah, and I think it's really important because I know I'm partially responsible for this, but not every writer has to do this full time. You don't have to become a full-time author. And in fact, I think it's a ridiculous number, like 95% of novelists, for example, have a day job. It's, you know, this is not something you have to do for your whole life. And in fact, I mean, I'm an author entrepreneur. I make money from courses and speaking as well as writing books. So, you know, you could say that side is a day job, you know, there are all kinds of different ways. So don't feel the pressure that this has to be everything, you know. Okay, so we should probably answer a question on marketing. Anne says, what is the best way to promote a book that falls outside genres, that is just a novel, not necessarily literary? I'm going to start on this because this is one of my pet peeves. And I know for many people, okay, everyone thinks that their novel's original and falls outside genre, but it doesn't. Genre is just a category on Amazon, okay? So, and when you self-publish, or if you have a publisher, you have to put it in a box. You get 2 boxes with 2 categories, and you get 7 keywords, and you can get into other categories with those 7 keywords. But you have to come up with something. So literally, you cannot say that it falls outside genres. You can say it's cross-genre. So I write cross-genre. I write crime that's also kind of paranormal, and trying to find that there is no genre for that. If I could just write a straight crime, it'd be cool, but I can't. So yeah, in terms of promoting a book that falls outside genre or cross genre, you have to first pick 2. And then secondly, I would be thinking about themes, about places, about interesting stuff that's in your book. So for my London Psychic series, these psychic crime novels, I do a lot about London. I share pictures on Pinterest and on Twitter and on Facebook. I share, you know, videos of the cool settings that I use and the weird objects that I write about in my books. I share books that I read. Basically share what you love that other people will enjoy hearing about, that fit into the themes of your books. Orna?
Yeah, I suspect possibly that the question comes from this kind of thing we were talking about earlier on, where literary and genre kind of, you know, dualistically set in opposition to each other, and that perhaps you're thinking my book, you know, doesn't fall into what I think of as genre fiction writing, neither does it fall into what I think of literary fiction writing. Those distinctions are best just left aside. I'd love to get rid of the word genre and replace it with category, because I think it makes it much easier. Genre was only ever kind of invented so the booksellers would know what shelf to put your book on. So if you just think about that, what is the category? What shelf should the book be on? You know, what's the best kind of category that tells the reader what they're likely to experience in this book? And forget about that distinction between literary fiction and genre fiction, which is really a sort of an outburst from trade publishing, but has very little relevance to readers. Readers don't think that way. They just think about the topics they like to read, about the kinds of stories they like to read, and so on.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So we still have a ton of questions. I have one here that I think is interesting. Margaret says, I've been told it's really useful to be involved on Kindle boards or K boards from a marketing point of view. I'm finding them very hard to navigate. How useful are they? Should I persevere? Okay. K boards is simultaneously one of the most useful places, and on the other hand, one of the most toxic places you can hang out on the internet. Personally, I don't hang out there at all. I wait for things to filter up from keyboards. So for example, the Digital Reader website, or the Passive Voice, they will often pick up things from keyboards and report them at a higher level. So that's I just don't do forums in general. I find them a bit of a time suck. So that would be my thing. However, I mean, Hugh Howey ends up on keyboards, you know, chatting. A lot of the romance people are sharing really interesting stuff on keyboards. But I do find that if there's something really super interesting, someone else will link to it in the Facebook group or on a blog.
Always. It reminds me of the news, you know. You can sit watching Sky News all day, or you can just wait and you'll find out. You'll find out. What you need to know will come to you. And you ask specifically about them from a marketing perspective. And if you're talking about, you know, actually getting readers for your own books, I would say they're absolutely useless, and except that you might get marketing tips if that's what you mean from other writers. But there are many other ways to get those, and I think keyboards and, you know, lots of forums, the ALLi forum obviously being the exception, there is a huge amount of stuff that you kind of have to wade through to get to the useful stuff. And as indies, I think there's this kind of FOMO, fear of missing out thing. It can be a very pervasive sort of thing. Oh, there's something going on over there that I don't know about, or there's this magic trick or key that if I can, you know, if I hang around with enough authors, I'm going to kind of learn something that I didn't know that I really need to know. I think it's much better done on a sort of a need-by basis. So go learn by doing, do what you do, what appeals to you. And then when you have a specific question, go and find the answer to it. And look only for the very best information. Mm-hmm. So 1 or 2 trusted sources, they will all get round. They may not have it immediately, but everybody will get round to anything that's really useful. And in the meantime, there's this kind of flurry here and there. And, you know, there are these conversations that go nowhere and big upsurges of emotion and Amazon bashing and, you know, so many things that you can kind of get lost in negative review responses. And I mean, lots and lots of authors spend far more time writing on social media, commiserating with each other and talking to each other about what they might do, will do. You know, I would say be very, very careful about going there. And if you don't love it, if you're not enjoying it, don't do it at all. And that applies to any social media, unless you're actually getting something at an informational level or enjoyment level, don't bother. Mm-hmm.
I think the same also applies at the moment for the whole political situation in both the UK and the US particularly. And I've been very aware, like I've just been addicted to, oh my goodness, what is going on? It's like a train wreck. And then I'm just like, I need to stop putting that stuff in my head so much, because it just becomes a drain and it takes up this mental space that we need for creation. So if you're feeling overwhelmed by everything, not just indie, but the world in general, like you got to just unplug. And I know that's crazy coming from someone like me. I look like I'm on Twitter all the time, but I do schedule most things. But this is the thing, you have to just stop and clear your head, because you won't be able to create anything unless you make the space. So you know, let's all commit to not indulging in so much ongoing news. Okay, so we've only got a few more minutes. I want to just, there's a question about the actual podcast that we're doing right now. Things are changing, aren't they, in the way that the podcast is going to go out? There's a question about, is it just going to be on SoundCloud only? How's it going to work?
Yeah, SoundCloud is kind of what we've been using. SoundCloud have changed their terms and now they're subscription only. So, and we're actually working on it this month and just getting it all streamlined. So it's going to be available in lots of different ways for you to download, iTunes, Stitcher, and continue with SoundCloud and various other ways. So we will be sending around an email once we've got that sorted, and it will be happening before our next our next member Q&A. So yeah, watch this space for all of that.
Fantastic. And just to also announce, we have something quite exciting, and I know it's only for people who are in England or in London, but Orna and I are actually doing a full day event together called How to Make a Living and a Life with Your Writing. And we're going to be talking about the business side as well as the creative side of being an indie author. And you can find out about that. It's going to be in London in November. So if you are around, you can find out about that at thecreativepenn.com/NOV16, NOV16, short for November 16. And yeah, we're just quietly mentioning it at the moment before we fully start advertising it or anything. But I think, you know, and it's interesting to do that because I've been cutting down on my speaking to focus more on writing, but it's good that it gives us a chance to help more people, I think, as well, in a slightly longer form way.
Exactly. You know, we've to answer the questions very, very quickly here. I'm really excited about the idea of having a full day where we can really go into each person's individual way of doing things and meet people where they're at. And there's going to be a ton of, you know, great information, but it's also going to be very hands-on, so that you will actually, in the course of doing the day, be doing things that you need to get done, and you will walk away with stuff actually done and knowing very clearly what to do next. So yes, the first time we'll have done something like this together, so it'll be fun too, I hope.
Just the two of us. It'll be interesting to see how it goes. Yeah, anyway, it'll be fun. Okay, so it is we're out of time. Anything you want to share about the coming month ahead, Orna?
No, it's August, so yeah, have fun.
Are we doing the end of August then next?
Yes, back to normal. It was just because I was away last week. So our September podcast will be in.
Oh, you mean August? August the 30th podcast.
August the 30th, yeah. But it's our September one.
Oh, okay.
Which we'll record on August 30th, yeah.
Right. Okay. Great. So, yeah, or we'll be live on Tuesday, 30th of August, same time. Otherwise, happy creating month, everybody. Thanks for coming along. And the questions that we will hold over a whole load of questions till next time. So thank you so much, and have a good writing month.
Thanks, everyone. Bye. Bye, Joe.